In this lesson, we're going to learn how to add foliage to our landscape. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up the foliage tab of the modes panel. And you'll see that we can paint in some foliage. Now, before we can paint in foliage, we need to add the meshes that we want to begin painting. So to do this, we'll go to our content browser. And I've already brought in the folder for us, so you should see that in your project files. And you'll see Assets. And inside of Assets, you're going to see your Meshes folder. Double-click on that, and you'll see that you have two different foliage meshes, complete with materials and textures. So this is going to be a tree, and this will be grass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left-click and drag both of those, hold down Control, and then left-click and drag that into the level editor, and there you're going to drop that right here on Meshes. Now, you'll notice that it didn't drop anything in, and I put that in the wrong place. You need to drag it right here on this little line. So it can be a little difficult at first, but left-click, drag, drop that on that line there, and then it's going to bring both of those in. So that first one can be a little difficult. Alright, so now you'll see that we have two different objects in here for our foliage. You see the grass, and then you'll also see the tree. So the first thing that you'll want to do is go ahead and set up some very quick parameters. First thing is our density. Whenever we start painting in, you'll notice that you've got this little area, and what it will do is it will actually paint 100 of those meshes in there. And actually, it won't be 100, but it will fill that entire brush. Okay, and it'll just create as many pieces of foliage as needed. I usually don't want that. Normally what I like to do is I like to set this to a very low number, and it's usually 1. Same thing with our tree here, so hit enter there. And then you can set up your radius for your painting and things like that. On the foliage, like the grass, I do want that to align to the normal. And what that will do is it will actually paint the grass, and it will point it perpendicular to the surface of your landscape. But with the trees, I don't want that. I don't want trees off at an angle or anything like that. So I'm actually going to turn off their align to normal, and then leave that. Now I want to go ahead and paint just the trees first. Okay, I don't want to put the grass in with the trees themselves, because if I just left click and hold down Control and then left click, what it will do is it will paint in your tree, and then sometimes it will also paint in your grass, and I don't really want to do that. So what I'll do is I'll just turn off my grass for right now, and that will turn off that highlighting. So let's go ahead and continue on with our parameters for our tree. I like to change the scale of the trees, and so I'm going to set this to 0.5, and then the max is going to be the 1.0. And so what that will do is it will create a tree at a random size or random scale. We'll also have the yaw, so it'll rotate our tree at a random angle. So we'll go ahead and we'll leave that there. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll just start to paint in some trees. Hold down Control and just start to place some trees along those hills. And what we want to do is we want to just place those. Now these are going to look really large, and because that's their actual size. We don't want this hill to seem like a mountain. Okay, so if you're looking at that and you're thinking that that's a mountain, you're looking at it at a different scale. So these trees kind of help put that into perspective. So we're going to place this here. We'll just kind of fill in some of these areas. And we'll just start to place some trees kind of close. And we just want to make this something nice to look at. So let me go ahead and place a tree right about here. Okay, just kind of breaking up that landscape a little bit. Okay. And don't be afraid to come out here close to the building. Okay, that's okay. Just kind of take a look at what that looks like. And I'm okay with that tree being there. Might put one out here. And notice how they're randomizing their size. Now you don't want to get too carried away with trees. Okay, you can simply left click and you can start dragging that around and then paint it automatically like that. Sometimes that helps things go a little bit faster. But sometimes it can create too many trees in one area. And we don't want to do that because that can really start to bog down the system. Okay, and that can create some issues. Now, one way that we can remove trees if we painted too many is by holding down Control and then Shift, and then left-click on the tree that you want to remove. Okay, and that will remove any tree that was in that area. So I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to put 1 or 2 back in here. That's good there. Let's go ahead and remove some that were up in here. We don't really need that one. And looking in some of these areas, trying to kind of thin that out a little bit. Looks like we may have 1 in here, 1 or 2 that need to go away. Okay, that looks good. But you can place trees wherever you like. Doesn't really matter. Okay, now you can also, let me bring that back there. You can also change the rotation of your trees individually. So a way to do that is to go up in your tools and you'll have select. So here you can actually select individual trees and you can treat them like static meshes. So you can move them around, you can kind of fine tune their position, you can also rotate them and even scale them if needed. Okay, so that's another way of controlling those objects. Alright, so now let's go ahead and fill in with our grass. Let's make sure that we turn off our trees and let's go back to our paint tool and let's paint some of these trees in. So hold down Control and you'll notice that our grass is actually very, very large. Okay, and I don't want that either. Let's go ahead and take our scale. Let's knock this down to 0.25. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do 0.1 and then 0.25 on our max. Alright, great. Now let's hold down Control. We'll kind of place in some of this grass in some of these areas. You could paint that in if you'd like, but you want to be careful. You don't want to get too carried away with it because, again, vegetation is one of those objects that look really, really nice, but it can eat up your memory. Okay, and so you don't want a game to where it's just a one room environment and you can't even move around in it because you've got so much foliage. Okay, even in open worlds, okay, vegetation is used only as needed. Okay, trying to be very sparse with it. Okay, all right, great. So this is going to kind of help sell our outside here. So some of these areas we may not need to do anything. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at it from that perspective. Let's go ahead and go back to our Place tab here and just kind of look out, see what we have here. We've got some trees, look pretty good. You may want to come in and maybe make a couple of changes, but all in all, I think that's pretty good. I do want to actually get rid of this one right here. So let's go back to our foliage. Let's just select that one and delete. Okay, you can do that as well. And then I want to take this one right here, grab my move tool, let me position that right over here. Now notice that it's not snapping it to the landscape, so we'll want to make sure that we lift that up and put that right where it needs to be. Alright, great. So that looks good. Go back inside, just take a look at what we have. And I'm pretty happy with that. I do want to move this one just a little bit. That looks good. Alright. There we go. I don't like the position of that one. And so I'm just kind of looking at it the way an artist would look at something. Okay, we're building a world and we have a specific viewpoint. And so we want to make sure that that view is nice to look at. Okay, so not too bad. I'm okay with that. Alright, so now that we've got our vegetation and our landscape all built up, what we're going to do now is we're going to begin the process of kind of winding this course down and getting the final look that we want. And so I'm going to show you how to take care of your lighting, okay, kind of get that look that you want. And we're going to bring in some static meshes, and then we're going to start looking at blueprints and kind of wrapping this up. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started with set dressing next.